All right, good morning. The time is 8:30 a.m. and I will call the special called meeting of the mayor and council to order. Today is June 26, 2014. All members of the mayor and council are present. The original purpose of this meeting was to accept the settlement agreement reached in the Couts versus Bender case. I understand that a lot of the actions on the agenda are based on that settlement. Do I have any consideration to amend the agenda so that we can discuss the settlement before we take the other actions? Okay, seeing none, we'll just go in order. First, we have an action on a new job description for the position of city clerk to include all the items currently listed in the City of Snellville Code of Ordinances, Section 2-204, in addition to items included in the recommendations of the city manager. Mr. Sanders, do you have a recommendation on this?
Mayor, with this change, I tried to go back and look at what was in the code as far as the clerk's assigned duties there, and just looked at what traditional duties there are for city clerks, and looking at some other job descriptions. And these are the beginning recommendations. This is what I would recommend to the mayor and council. The clerk will be reporting to the mayor and council. This is what I think is a fairly good list of job duties for a city clerk's position. And I would recommend these to you, and you certainly are free to make recommendations to change those. But this is what I think is a pretty good job description.
Questions for Mr. Sanders?
I have a few. These job descriptions are, I would assume, aligned with what other typical cities in our area would have for a city clerk?
Mr. Manuel, it's most are taken directly from our code, and then adding a couple because I mean, things need to be administered when it comes to state ethics and campaign commission requirements. I think that's, in talking to people, that's a pretty standard clerk's duty to make sure that there are reminders to elected officials for when reports are due and whatnot. So basically, I think this is very standard for a city clerk of a city our size.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Mr. Sanders, I have a few questions. Do we currently have a job description prior to this one for a position of city clerk?
I think that job description has probably changed over time because of Melissa's duties that she's added. So I went back and started from the beginning.
Okay, but do we have a written job description for the position of city clerk currently?
I can't tell you that.
Isn't it? Doesn't every city have a written job description with a range of salary for the position of city clerk?
As far as salaries are concerned?
No, a job description with a range of salaries. Doesn't every city keep that on file for the position of city clerk?
I would assume that's the case. When it comes to salaries, all I did was go back and look at DCA's salary survey to come up with what I thought was a good comparison of other communities our size in the metro Atlanta suburban ring, if you will.
And the City of Snellville ordinances as they now exist says that the city clerk is also the city treasurer. And so you've listed in this job description the duties of the city clerk under 2-204 but you've omitted everything from 2-205.
That's what I thought we were doing, that we were going back to the traditional city clerk duties, and I assumed that the financial responsibilities that Melissa had taken on would move to the financial clerk position, or however that is decided upon.
Okay, but the law as it stands today says that the city clerk is also the city treasurer. So when an appointment is made to city clerk, they are also appointed as city treasurer. Understand later in the agenda, the council is going to take action to amend the ordinances, but that takes several readings. So on what authority today are you removing the duties of city treasurer from the city clerk?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I just thought that was the direction we were headed as far as separating those duties out. That's why this was,
Who gave you that direction? Who gave you that authority for today? Because as the law stands today, the city clerk has all of these duties as city treasurer.
I thought that has been the discussion since January, when we had, went
No,
through the.
No, sir. In January, currently, Ms. Arnold is city clerk and city treasurer based on our law. And the discussion you and I had in December was to bifurcate her position because she also oversees municipal court clerk and she also is the purchasing agent. So the bifurcation we discussed in the trial and we discussed in December was to take away those positions, those duties that are not associated with city clerk. And the job description you're giving us today is not taking away the duties not associated with city clerk, it's taking away the duties that have financial impact that are associated with city clerk and that are, as a matter of law, as it stands in the city of Snellville today, are the duties of the city clerk. So on whose authority are you doing that?
Like I said, I was just going by the discussion that we have had for over several months in separating those duties out. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I certainly thought that that was the separation that had been under discussion, and I thought that's where we were headed.
Mr. Sanders, again, the discussion we had was about the purchasing agent and the municipal court clerk, not the city clerk and city treasurer. Does Ms. Arnold currently do all of these duties as city treasurer? Or does she delegate them to someone else on staff?
I believe that, I'm not exactly sure what the city treasurer designation includes.
It's listed clearly in 2-205, duties as city treasurer, receive all money due to the city council, including taxes, pay out such money only upon orders passed by the city council and signed by the mayor, or in his absence, the mayor pro tem, keep a book of accounts showing all money received on behalf of the city and the source and disposition thereof, which book shall be open for inspection by the public and city council members, maintain a uniform system of accounts and keep such other records and accounts as may be required by statute or ordinance, furnish the city council with quarterly statements detailing all receipts and payments of funds for the quarter.
Those duties are separated throughout the staff. Controller, the clerks down in planning and development bring in, collect and deposit money. So those duties are separated, have been delineated and designated across the staff.
So Ms. Arnold's current salary is not based on what she's doing as city treasurer, because she has delegated those duties.
It's based on all the other duties that she has taken over the years, including purchasing and clerk of the court and other responsibilities that she carries out with departments.
Mr. Sanders, did you meet with city staff yesterday before this meeting and already go ahead and delegate to them the job duties that you were trying to take away from the city clerk as city treasurer?
I'm not trying to take anything away from the city clerk. I was trying to come up with a job description based on the discussions that we've had over time. And as far as Ms. Arnold's duties were concerned, yes, we've had a few days to go over some of her responsibilities and decide how those will be addressed.
Did you communicate to city staff members that they would receive a raise for taking on some of the new duties of city clerk?
No, we have not talked about any compensation.
But you may not have spoken about specific amounts, but did you make the statement people would be compensated for taking on additional responsibilities?
Not that I remember, no.
Mr. Sanders, you sent me an email while I was in Savannah that you wanted to discuss the transition with Ms. Moreland Richardson when I returned. Have you sat down and talked to Ms. Moreland Richardson about her qualifications to see if she is qualified to handle these duties that you're taking away from the position of city clerk?
No, I have not. I had assumed that Ms. Richardson would be the appointee, but I usually wait until a new employee is on board to go over issues like that. But Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm not taking anything away. I was just trying to give you a job description based on the discussion that we've had.
Do you know if anyone from the city has sat down and talked to Ms. Moreland Richardson, see if she's capable of handling these responsibilities, if she's capable of overseeing municipal court? I know there's been some comments that we're going to hire additional staff to be a purchasing agent and to handle municipal court. Has anyone talked to Ms. Moreland Richardson about her qualifications for this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Sanders?
I would like to have Mr. Powell's interpretation about all this that we just heard. Mr. Powell, can you explain this situation to us?
Okay, this is a discussion between mayor and council, so that's not proper at this point in time. Mr. Powell, you may have a seat. There's nothing.
Point of order, Mayor. Again, I would like to challenge the chair on that. Would like, before we go any further, to hear from our city attorney.
Okay, if you want to call an exec session to get some legal advice, but this is a discussion between the mayor and council at this point in time. We're debating an agenda item, and so Mr. Powell is not a member of the mayor and council. It's not open for public comment at this point in time, and so I don't believe it is proper.
Ma'am, Mr. Powell is not the public. Mr. Powell is our city attorney. You brought up some legal issues here that the council, I believe, should have a right to hear the legal interpretation of the conversation that you just had with Mr. Sanders. I know of no one here on the council who can give us that information. I believe the only way we're going to get it is if we ask it from our city attorney. So once again, I ask you that you allow the city attorney to speak on behalf, or speak to us on the legal ramifications of the conversation you just had with Mr. Sanders.
As I stand by my statement, if you would like to call an exec session to discuss legal implications of the pending case, you may do so, but at this point in time, this is a debate on an agenda item between members of the mayor and council. If you want to call for an appeal to the parliamentarian, so be it.
I appeal to the parliamentarian.
In this case, the ruling of the chair will stand unless the council overrules by way of an appeal. It'll be a first and a second, and then a vote. And if that takes place, then the ruling of the chair as it stands would be overturned.
I'd like to make like appeal a decision of the chair.
Second.
There's a motion. Is there a second? A second by Councilman Emanuel. All those in favor of the motion as stated signify by raising your right hand. That is 5 in favor. All those opposed, that's 1 opposed. The ruling stands overturned. Mr. Powell.
Mayor and council, the provisions that you are all discussing are all within the purview of the council. Y'all have to decide what the job description of the city clerk will be. Our understanding, and I think this is Mr. Sanders also because of his instructions to me, was that it was the mayor's decision to bifurcate the job position so that city clerk was segregated as a separate item. And so for that reason, obviously the code provisions were the beginning point, which is currently in the code under the definition of city clerk. There are city clerk responsibilities that are statutory that are included in the list. The city has a number of provisions that are out of date, and you will be taking up some of those in an action item in this agenda. One of those is the concept of city treasurer. And that concept has already been transitioned to the comptroller in most of those job responsibilities. So clearing that description of job responsibilities up is what Mr. Sanders was doing in this case. Now legally, the court has put in the position, decided that when it's not specifically delineated under the charter, that the council, which is the mayor and council, the 6 of you, decide what those issues are, and as long as it's not in conflict with the charter, then you can set up the job description. Now it's really important to set the job description with all of those so that the salary can be adjusted to be appropriate for the duties that are being assigned. And so this is the normal course and implementation of the settlement agreement. that everybody's entered into. So it's totally within your purview. You can add things or subtract things from that list. Even the descriptions that were part of the original clerk descriptions in the code are subject to your review and change. But these are the normal functions of the clerk, or the roles that they play with regard to keeping the records and the minutes and attesting to those seals. Now, you can't change the charter provision, but that's very limited. All the others are within your purview today. And the recommendation of the city manager is a consistent and very viable way to describe the duties of the clerk. Obviously, you will have the flexibility to the extent that you have someone that's as talented as Melissa Arnold, who can do multiple things. You can do what you did with her, and that is expand those responsibilities to be very cost-effective in this case as far as she's concerned. Her work is exemplary. Now, one of the divisions that Mr. Sanders alluded to is the concept of the clerk's role with regard to serving the city council as its clerk and document recorder and keeper. That is a normal function that does not fall underneath the supervisory role of the city manager. When you step outside of that, the court ruled, obviously on directed verdict in this case, that the financial affairs of this city belong within the purview of the council to make those decisions, and within the purview of the city manager. So those are things that we've successfully delineated in that case when it comes to the treasurer issues also. So those are soundly within the discretion of this council to make decisions on those. And to the extent it's helpful that an appointee would take on those responsibilities, you're free to allocate those. But you end up in that situation of having two bosses, one being the city administrator, who has really total control over the administration of the employees of the city, and that responsibility of the legislative branch, where you have a clerk to keep up with your records and your minutes. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer the rest of them.
Questions for Mr. Powell?
I have one question. If I understand this right, then the document that we received this morning as far as the city clerk's duties, this would maintain the city clerk under the separate from the city manager as far as jurisdiction, for lack of a better word, and she would serve the mayor and council as the city clerk to the mayor and council.
There is never going to be a day where your officers, your city manager and your city clerk, don't have to work together and under a common jurisdiction. And an example of that is open records. That's not absolutely a clerk duty. Those things come to every department in the city. The city manager ultimately has responsibility over that. If you give that duty to the city clerk as far as the open records management, then she becomes subject to his administration in that area. Now, in areas of attending all meetings, then this council will be her supervisor in that area. Keep the records and minutes. Y'all will be actually taking up the minutes, setting the agendas, giving her the instructions, approving those. So in your job chart that you've set up in the past, it showed that relationship specifically. So it's not altogether a definitive line, but it's more than it ever was with Ms. Arnold serving in that position. She overlapped where most of her job responsibilities actually flowed back to administration, and she was serving under the direct supervision of the city manager under your charter. So it's dramatically changing that to create just a focused clerk position. In the focus clerk position, the primary job responsibilities go with serving the council.
Mr. Powell, can you amend an ordinance by resolution?
You cannot.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Any other questions for Mr. Powell?
Yes, I had one other question. Mr. Powell, I think you made it clear in your comments, but I just do want to reiterate one thing, is that if we approve this job description as recommended by the city manager for the new city clerk, these are again being approved by a majority of the city council, and at any given time, should Ms. Richardson excel in a different area and more duties are awarded to her or allowed for her to take over, then we can always amend this and add those to her job description as well.
Absolutely. And if you can achieve, and it's amazing to me, if you can achieve the efficiency of Ms. Arnold when it comes to all the extra administrative duties that she does, then you've got a city that's operating very efficiently.
Thank you.
All right, we've been given a resolution on this matter this morning. It's an unnumbered resolution. It reads, "A resolution affirming a job description for the position of city clerk to include all the items currently listed in the City of Snellville Code of Ordinances, Section 2-204, and job responsibilities recommended by the city manager. Whereas on June 20th, 2014, a settlement agreement was entered into a case then pending in the Superior Court of Gwinnett County in an action styled Couts v. Bender, etc., civil action number 14-A-00747-10, which provides for a special called meeting of June 26, 2014, to appoint a city clerk pursuant to the current city charter, section 3.13, as amended by Home Rule Ordinance 2010-05. Whereas the appointment of the city clerk as proposed by the mayor requires a reconfiguration of the job responsibilities after that position is vacated by Melissa Arnold, because she performed numerous administrative functions and duties far beyond the responsibilities of city clerk on behalf of the city manager, including but not limited to filling the positions of accounts payable administrator and IT director. Whereas the mayor and council have separated the duties of city treasurer from those of city clerk with the appointment of the administrative office of controller, which is currently held by Jan Burke. Whereas these job descriptions modifications need to be in place at the time of the appointment of a new city clerk on or before June 26, 2014. It is hereby resolved that the job description and classification for the position city clerk as provided by the city manager attached hereto as Exhibit A is adopted as a current job classification, specifications, and description for the position of city clerk by the mayor and council as of the 26th day of June 2014. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
There's a motion to approve resolution number 2014, whatever the number will be.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion of council. This resolution is not in the spirit of the settlement agreement we reached last week. The settlement agreement, contrary to what Mr. Powell has just stated, mentions nothing about the council redoing the job description of the city clerk. There was no discussion during the trial of bifurcating the city clerk position from city treasurer and city clerk. The discussion in the trial was bifurcating the position of city clerk with her city clerk duties and with the duties she had that reported to the city manager as the head of a municipal court clerk and as the purchasing agent. Based on state law and city law, the city clerk is also the city treasurer, and she's also the election superintendent, and she's the city clerk. The duties as city treasurer are found in our Code of Ordinances for the City of Snellville, 2-205. Now, it's within the authority of this council to amend that code section 2-205 and remove those duties and responsibilities from the city clerk as city treasurer, but they cannot do so by a resolution. And they cannot do so in today's meeting. It takes 2 readings to amend an ordinance. What is most telling to me about this today is that no one has bothered to speak to Ms. Moreland Richardson. No one has looked at her resume or her qualifications. They are assuming that she cannot do these responsibilities. And what's most telling is they are removing the financial responsibilities from Ms. Moreland Richardson. The way we have this, our system of checks and balances set up, the city clerk's signature appears on all checks as the city treasurer. Ms. Burke, as the controller, issues those checks, and so it's a checks and balance system. The city clerk and either the city manager or the mayor's signature appears on our city checks. And so by making Ms. Burke city treasurer, her signature will appear on all checks, and the checks and balance system will be gone because she's also the one that issues the checks. This, to me, is, there was nothing in the judge's order that the settlement agreement that said if there could be no, if there was no delineation in the charter or code of ordinances, that the authority was left to the city council. That's an issue that is up on appeal in another case. There was nothing in the judge's order, the directed verdict that Mr. Powell mentioned, that said all financial matters are within the discretion of the city manager. There was a directed verdict on the issue of using the mayor's signature or requiring the mayor's signature to be on checks, but the judge simply said we did not exhaust all other remedies until it was not ripe for a legal ruling at that point in time that we needed to first go to the bank. So this, to me, is nothing more than a disappointment, a contempt of the settlement agreement that we are going to be entering into. I entered into the settlement agreement last week in good faith, hoping to move the city forward. But this is a slap in the face, not to me, but to Ms. Moreland Richardson and to the city of Snellville. And this is something, if the council moves forward with these actions, not just this one, but the rest of the actions on the agenda today, we will wind back up in court. We are hoping to save the city thousands of dollars in legal fees by resolving this without having to have more court action or having to go to the Court of Appeals. But I take this as a sign of being in contempt of the settlement agreement we're about to vote on, and something that will end up back in the court if council takes this action. I will open the floor up to public comment. If anyone would like to speak for or against this action, please state your name and address for the record.
Point of order, Mayor. You just accused this council of perhaps being in contempt of court on the settlement, and I would like, before we go any further, once again, to ask our city attorney his interpretation of whether we would be in contempt of court on this. We certainly don't want to do anything that would be in contempt of the settlement or in contempt of court. That's never been the object of this council.
Mr. Woods, I believe my statement was, I believe that you will be in contempt of court, and I believe on taking it in front of a judge.
Once again, you're making the accusation to the public that this council could possibly be in contempt of court. I would like to have the city attorney's opinion before we vote to make sure that we are not doing something that would put us in contempt of court. That has never been the object of this council.
Well, Mr. Witz, I'm sure the city attorney who has represented you and other members of council in court is not going to get up here and tell you, since he drafted these documents, that he believes you'll be in contempt of court. But that's not an issue for him to decide. It's an issue for a judge to decide, and possibly a jury. But if he wants to come forward and put it on the record, he doesn't believe you'll be in contempt of court, so be it. Mr. Powell?
Council, obviously, I don't believe that would be the case. The settlement agreement did state that there would be a separate position called city clerk, which we don't have a definition for other than what's in the code. That has been put into this job description completely, and plus some other responsibilities. And so I don't anticipate that this is going to be confusing to the court or anybody else who looks at it as to the assigned responsibilities of the clerk.
Mr. Powell, another question.
Yes, sir.
As I understand it, the original intent was to separate the city clerk from the other duties Ms. Arnold performed. In order to do that, don't we need a specific definition of what the city clerk position is?
You do, and you need to, when a person is designated to hold that position, which is sort of anticipated in this agenda, they need to be put on notice of the terms of their employment. And so it's really a responsible thing to do to create the list as best we can under the circumstances of litigation, define the word clerk, because everybody knew when they signed the settlement agreement it was not going to be the previous definitions of what Ms. Arnold's job description was. So we're doing the very best we can to give that job description so that it's clear to the person who takes that role. And with the balance of these action items, we're clearing up the other issues of confusion that were revealed inside the litigation, so that whoever that person is who's appointed will have the blessing of certainty and the protection of the law. And it's really a good thing to do.
I've had an opportunity to look at Ms. Richardson's resume, and it appears to me she could quite possibly handle a lot of other duties. Would that best be done by expanding the role of the city clerk or defining other positions?
I know this sort of is not the right thing for the city attorney to say, but when it comes to the administrative actions of this city, the power of this city is vested in the city manager. So when it comes to defining those roles of extended administrative responsibility, it's his job to do that, and in fact, there's a charter provision that says you should stay out of that. And so, that's the way this city is designed to work, and to the extent that there are financial responsibilities, which we seem to have gotten a good, clear indication on in the court case as to how that works, that's clearly within his purview, and to the extent that there are capabilities of everybody, the city seems to be able to take advantage of that because of its frugalness. It's certainly visible to me that this city operates very efficiently, spreading people out using all of their talents and very effectively. And I've not witnessed anything that didn't fully utilize somebody's capabilities. So.
Thank you.
Public comment.
My name is Mac Brannon. I'm a citizen of Snellville, and I've sat here and listened to this morning. I am a retired employee from Gwinnett County, and it's appalling to me that you cannot submit a job description, previous job description from Ms. Arnold. If you can't, then there's obviously a record-keeping problem within the city. If it's being changed from the original job description prior to Ms. Arnold, then this action is wrong. Period. That's it. The council here, the mayor, the city manager, y'all need to work together and resolve this without coming and attacking. This does not need to go back to court. Snellville has become a laughingstock of the United States, all the way to California, on the news, that we can't get along. Now, it's my understanding that it is a requirement to have a job description. When Ms. Arnold was placed in that, there had to be a job description. And if I'm not mistaken, the financial responsibility was in that city clerk's position at that point in time. It wasn't too terribly long ago, seeing how I have been born and raised here in Snellville. I'm 51 years old. The mayor ran the city. There was no city manager. The council and the mayor made decisions, but the mayor was the city manager. We took on the city manager's position to relieve the mayor of the daily obligations of the city. But the mayor and the clerk's position by the ordinance, that's an appointed position by the mayor. That position serves and can be terminated at any point in time. Ms. Arnold is not being terminated from employment. I've been told that she's being relieved or fired. She's not being fired. She's still a city of the Snellville. She's being moved to a different area. Much like other organizations within the county, you get moved for the best time and place and need at this point in time. It's time for new things to happen in Snellville other than this bickering and fighting. The citizens are tired of it. And if you are not careful, every last one of you is going to get voted out. I'm sick of it.
I'm sorry, I needed your address for the record.
2455 Maple Street, Snellville, Georgia.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Carol Maldonado Hall of 1720 Toasttown Court. and I'm a very concerned resident of Snellville. I have a few questions for City Council. When was the last time the job description was changed?
Ms. Hall, I can't tell you the last time the job description was changed. I can just tell you that what I tried to put together was a job description for a city clerk position. And that's,
So you don't know when the last time?
I can't tell you the last time it was changed.
From what I understand, the current city clerk has been in her position for 24 years. Has it been changed in the last 24 years?
I can tell you that her duties have changed over the last 24 years. And I'm certain that the job description, I certainly hope the job description has changed over those 24 years. It's not changed. I haven't touched it in my 20 months here.
So
Just so that you're clear, Ms. Arnold has been city clerk since 2009, not for 24 years.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, okay. What is the previous salary?
I believe Ms. Arnold, when she became city clerk, started off at around 52,000, is currently at approximately 59,000. The previous city clerk, when she left, was making 77,000.
So the previous was making 77, Ms. Arnold now is making 59.
Ms. Arnold started at 52 and is now making approximately 59.
And so what is the new salary going to be changed to now that the new city clerk, Ms. Phyllis Richardson, will be in place?
That's to be determined by the mayor and council.
Haven't gotten to that agenda item yet.
Okay, all right. What are you trying to hide that you want to strip the new clerk of financial responsibilities? Anyone cares to answer? Let me repeat the question. What are you trying to hide that you're trying to strip the new clerk of financial responsibilities?
Nobody's trying to hide anything.
Thank you for responding.